Right, what I'm going to do today is the big end bearing, which is made from this casting, which has to be split. But as you can see, it's offset. I mean, I don't know if you can. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, you can see that. The casting is, well, it's rubbish anyway. I know it's made oval to allow for the split and everything else, but it doesn't line through properly, and even with the cut it comes right on the edge of this. And there's another issue. Look, the measurement there is 3/4. It's a 3/4 radius on this outside part there, and you know, it only measures 5/8 to start with, which is fairly typical of these castings. They're really not very good. I don't know how important the 3/4 is. I'm just going to have a look at that in a minute, where it goes on to the crankshaft, which is just out of the picture. I know it's a 1/2 inch centre on the bearing, and that the crankshaft has got a little detail like this on the end. So if you imagine this on the crankshaft there, which that isn't, that of course is that, which we did in a previous video. Yeah, so I'm not going to get a 3/4 diameter on that, because it's only 5/8 to start with, so that's the most I'm going to get, 5/8, and the actual bore is 1/2 inch, as you can see here. With it looks like something like about a 1/16 radius. Well, if you then put a 1/16 radius on it, there's not going to be anything left. You know, it's just ridiculous. You got to try and make something out of a casting that's not right to start with. But anyway, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to, even if it ends up being like a practice piece, I have got a backup plan, because I've got a piece of bronze which I can actually, it's actually bigger than I need to make it true to the drawing. But I'm going to cut this. Initially, I'm going to start off by trying to, I'll just skim off there slightly and skim off there slightly, because they're reasonably square, or reasonably parallel I should say, and then I can put them in the vise, square up these ends so I've got something true to work to, and then I'll just skim off these surfaces as well so they're true. So however I decide to hold it, I'll be able to know that I've got some true sides on it. So what I'm going to do first is get over to the mill, get this trued up a little bit, and then once I've got it trued up, I can split it and then get it machined down to the size, because it's 2 pieces at 3/8 is what it is. So there's plenty there. You've got over 7/8. In fact, you've got 15/16. So there's plenty on the ends to true it up. But this bit here that's meant to be 3/4, that's never going to happen, is it? So anyway, if I use this piece, it's not going to end up looking like this. So let's see what I can end up with it looking like. There's not a great deal of work to machine it up, split it, and get it milled to whatever size it should be. And then I'll see if I think it's going to work. I suppose ideally I should have had the crank made initially to start with, but I don't know, will that make a difference? Anyway, I'll get it machined up, I'll get it bored out, everything else we'll make it as we can with this, but this bit isn't going to be 3/4, it's actually going to be 5/8 at the very most. Depends on how these 2 pieces line up. If they line up through there, which I can see right now that they don't, it's going to be even smaller. So let's make a start on squaring it up anyway, the best we can. that's all I want to do, just create a little flat surface on there which I'll round off later. So I've now got a face. That's my starting point for the whole thing now. So now I know I'm down true on the parallels. Now got a couple of true surfaces to work to, so I can now mill off the ends. I'll move that along. Right, should have a couple of nice square faces now. Perfect. Right, so we got that true, that's true, that's true. So now mill off this end as well. Right, you can now see from that, look how far out the castings are. So what I need to do now, I need to get these faces machined off, so I think sitting them on the parallels like that might be the best option there. Right, it's not dimensionally trued up obviously, but it is trued up enough. Right, that's got some faces I can work from now. So what I'm going to do is split it from the centre of this side, because this is the one that's the furthest over, because I need 3/8 left in on the most extreme one, which might be better to do from that side. Anyway, I'll work that out. Right, what I'm going to do is just put these back in the vise. I've split them now obviously, and I've got minimal amount left on these. This is probably the worst one, just how the castings work out. These two have got plenty of room left on this side to leave material in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just face off these two sides to give me a surface to work to, and then I'll flip them and I'll machine them down to dimension from this side, leaving as much of this sticky out bit of casting in as possible. So first task is to get them in there, sit them on the parallels and just skim off just a minimal amount on the top. They'll both be slightly different, but I'm just putting them in together to balance the vice out. Right, so let's get that up a bit. Do that one first. Right, two perfect surfaces now. Whip them out. Right. What I'm going to do, I'm going to deburr them. They need deburring. I'm going to deburr them, and then I'll machine them down to 3/8. Right, what I'm doing here is I'm letting the cutter down onto the top of the parallel, so it just touches the top of the parallel, and then I'm going to come up 375, which is my 3/8 dimension, and then 0 the DRO. Right, I'm up 375 now, so I'm going to 0 out the DRO, you probably just heard, and then I'm going to mill these down until I'm back to 0 on the DRO. So let's get them up above, and then we'll go from there. Right, they should both be down to 3/8 now, so let's whip them out and have a little look. I'll settle for that. Right, so it looks like, see them? Yeah. Looks like a bit of careful planning has paid off, because they are, or I say they are, exactly 3/4 of an inch there, but I still won't get the 3/4 of an inch there, because it never was 3/4 of an inch to start with. So anyway, what I'm going to do, I can't worry about that now. That's happened and that's it. So what I'm going to do now is to get these held somehow in the vise so that they don't move. I've got two options, you see. Now I can either soft solder them together, or I can, because or I can drill them, because they've got to be drilled, and a bolt goes through there anyway, because it bolts onto the con rod. Bolts onto the con rod, and then what I would do is put this assembly, I'm going to bolt it all together, put it back in the lathe, and then I'm going to spin it all around so that that gets machined down to the same size as this. That's the plan. Whether that'll work out or not, I don't know. I might just have to put this in on its own, or I might even round it off on the rotary table or a file or something. Anyway, we'll worry about that later. This is the job in hand. So I'm just going to get these deburred, and then I'm going to look at a way of fixturing them whereby I can get to both ends and hold them both securely. Now, if I was to put them both in the vise like this, the chances are they're going to slip, so they really need to be held down. So I might, well, I'm going to have to come up with something. Let's get them deburred to start with. Right, I decided to make the bearing off camera. I just kept trying to set the camera up and set this piece up. It's a very awkward piece to do, and I wanted to concentrate on it because I didn't want to mess it up. There was some doubt about whether I could get it out of the material, which I've managed to, but this outer ring here is meant to be 750, but it's not. It's 690, because that's what I could get from the casting, because the casting wasn't big enough. But everything else is dimensionally correct, and what I actually did, I know it's not the same as watching it, but I set it up in the vise pretty much like that. Drilled and tapped these to 4BA. They're meant to be 4BA clear. I was going to sort of pin them, and I did also think about soldering this together and then splitting it, and I just thought, well, if I put a thread through there, hold it in the vise, put the thread through, tighten everything down, it should hold in position while I do the bores and everything else, which is what I did. So in the end, I put it in the vise. Let's just wind that in. I put it in the vise to get this feature here. There's my pointer, that's better. To get this feature here, I put it in the vise, and I used a boring head run in the opposite direction to cut the outside, and then I drilled and reamed the centre to 500 1/2 inch. There's got to be a slight radius, internal radius on this part, so it fits to the radius on the crank. Well, I haven't made the crank yet, so I'm going to leave the radius. I'm going to leave this all connected together until I've done the crank, and then whatever radius I end up with on the crank, I can do this to suit. So I'm going to leave it like that. These holes are 4BA tapped. They're meant to be 4BA clear because it bolts onto the con rod, obviously. So that's the next project, the con rod. I've got to drill holes in here to match up with those ones, and also I've got to trim the ends of their con rod to suit the bearing. I did think I might bolt it all together and rig it up in the lathe and then turn this on the lathe, but I don't think I will. I think I'm gonna get the bolt holes in there, and then I'll bolt it together, and then I'll probably just file these corners off, or on the belt sander, or something like that. But the biggest issue now is, of course, holding it in the vise. The only thing I've got to hold it square with is that, which isn't very good. So I'm gonna come up with something to hold that, so I can just drill these couple of holes. Obviously I need to find the centers to get it to all mate up correctly. So that's next on the list. Right, this is my plan. This is the plan. Let's get that upright. Right, here's the setup. It's not brilliant, but it's reasonably stable. It wouldn't tolerate a bit of milling, but I've only got to drill 2 holes. So what I need to do is just edge find off of here, edge find off of here, and off of the fixture plate to find the centre, and then I need to come out, which is 350, I think. 750, 375. Got to come out 375 either way, drill a 4BA clear, job's a good one, and then I'll obviously have to just round these ends off to match the bearing, which eventually will be bolted onto there. Right, let's get on. Let's edge find it and drill it. Right, I need to come over 375 either way and put a 3.6 hole for a 4BA clear in there. So let's get a little spot them off and then drill them out to 4BA. Right, just get that cleaned up, deburred, and I'll get that bolted on, and then I'll be back. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to file these off. I think I'll file those off down to the bearing, so then we'll have that. Right, I'm not going to record that. I'll set that up in the voice and I'll file them off, and then I'll come back and show you when it's done. Alright, there you go. File down nicely now. So we've got the whole of the conrod now. So if we can get that all in the frame, there we go. Right, onwards and upwards. I've still got this end to do, the small end for the gudgeon pin, but I'm going to do that once I've made the gudgeon pin. I'll ream this to suit the gudgeon pin, or vice versa, whatever is necessary. So anyway, that's the conrod and big end bearing more or less finished. There's still a hole to drill in the bottom for a little oil way, and there's still the internal radius to do here, and of course these bolts will change to a nut and bolt when I drill them out for 40 clear number BA4 clearance hole. So anyway, yeah, let's move on. That's all, folks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button. I would also appreciate it if you would click the subscribe button, because that will enable me to grow the channel so that I can keep making these videos. Please leave a comment or a question. I do read all of the comments and reply to as many as I can. Thanks for watching.